It's easy to say it is important to build a relationship with the right people, people who can become clients. But for many independent consultants, and maybe you're one of them, this isn't the easiest thing to do. It is so easy to spend time in the wrong places, hoping to find the right people, the right clients, and only end up becoming frustrated because they're not there. They're not where you're spending the time. It's easy also to want to cast a wide net, which often leads to a scattered approach. And a scattered approach is ineffective and it is exhausting. When I think of casting the wide net, I think of the Find Waldo exercises. You look at a picture with 100 people and you need to find that little guy with that red and white striped polo shirt and the beanie hat with the red pom pom. How hard is that? Sometimes it's easy, but most times you really have to look hard. So instead of casting a wide net, you need to focus your efforts on a few key places, places where you can find your ideal client. But how do you go about doing that? Over the years, I've had numerous conversations with people, independent consultants, and it's not uncommon to hear them say, you know what, I'm exhausted. I don't know where to spend my time. And somebody said to me, well, that's only when people are new to consulting. I'm like, nope. I've worked with people with 4 or 5 years experience, it's even 9, 10 years. And they're sitting back saying, I'm struggling to find clients. One small business consultant who's focused on helping HVAC companies, HVAC business owners, strengthen their project management approach to servicing their clients, their customers, told me he had been struggling for months to find the right clients despite trying various methods. He was determined to succeed as an independent consultant, and he believed his focus was needed. And there was a need, there was want, and people were willing to pay for what he could help them with. Let me call this person Joe. Joe attended several networking events, and he was running from place to place, solid networking events, at least in his opinion. He reached out on social media, and he even signed up to take a LinkedIn course that promised to deliver 2 new clients a month. Oh, he found clients, or rather, he found people on LinkedIn, but they didn't fit his ideal client profile. And they weren't a good fit for what he wanted to do or what he wanted to help them with. Joe shared his frustrations. And one of his comments was, I'm talking to people, but they either don't have a budget or they're just not interested in what I have to offer. But I believe they are interested, or I believe there are people out there that are interested. I asked him a number of questions, but one was I asked him to reflect on where his ideal clients actually spent their time. Had he taken the time to research where his ideal clients were spending their time? Where were they hanging out? I asked him if the people he was meeting at the networking events fit his ideal client profile. His response, not really. But I was told these are good places to network. Boy, I know how that mistake can be made because I made that mistake. When I first went out on my own, I had a non compete. So I struggled to determine what places were good for me. Where could I go and not face a challenge of saying, I'm sorry, I can't work with you right now. So I networked at places, any place when somebody said, this is a good place to network. Eventually, I learned I was spending time where I shouldn't be. Joe also realized the same thing. There was only so much time, and he needed to figure out it fast as to where he would find his ideal client. Because if he didn't figure it out fast, he wasn't going to be in business much longer. I even asked Joe if the people he was connecting with on LinkedIn met his ideal client profile. His answer, not really. And there was the root of Joe's problem. Joe wasn't spending time where he could find his ideal client. And his ideal client could find him. There was a mismatch between the two. This video discusses a strategy and a very easy exercise to help you find your ideal client. And the exercise discusses a few common places that most consultants, not all, but most consultants, can check out to find their ideal client. Hi, I'm Laura Burford, and I help independent consultants build and grow their own consulting businesses. I do it by embracing a less is more philosophy that enables you to create and connect with the right people, people who fit your ideal client profile, and they become clients so that you have consistent revenue and you can live life on your own terms. Why do I do it? Because I've watched many people fail when they go out on their own to build their own consulting business. And you don't need to fail, but you do need to follow a process. Simply, I help independent consultants master consulting. If you would like to talk about your own consulting business, schedule a time to talk. There's a link in the first comment below, as well as in the description area. If you're not interested in talking, but you're interested in assessing your consulting knowledge, your consulting business, download the consulting assessment document. There's a link for that in the description area, as well as in the first comment. Getting back to Joe. Joe realized he needed to stop casting that wide net. He needed to spend time where he could find his ideal client. So he performed some research, and he decided to focus on two areas. The first area, HVAC trade organizations. Organizations where he knew HVAC business owners hung out. And he decided to focus on two of them. That's all. The other area he decided to focus on was what I refer to as complementary business groups. He found a local business group of contractors who supported one another by providing advice as well as leads. And that is where he spent his time. Here's the thing. As soon as Joe shifted his focus, everything changed for him. Joe quickly built relationships with key people in the organizations and the groups. And before long, he didn't need to chase clients. They came to him. They came to him because he was spending time where they were spending time, and they got to know him. And they started to trust him. They started to ask him questions. His calendar filled up with quality meetings. And the quality meetings led to new clients. Finding your ideal client is more about strategy than volume. And that's what Joe did. He took a strategic approach, thinking about where he could find his ideal client and narrowed down how many places he could spend time at. What is clear is that not every place works for every independent consultant. What works for one independent consultant might not work for you. And most people can only effectively manage spending time and energy at three key places. Because as you're trying to create clients, you're also servicing clients. So you want to use your time wisely. With that said, there are some common channels where you can find places where your ideal clients can be found. I'll provide you six 6 common ones that work for most independent consultants. The first, industry organizations and associations. Joe decided to spend time at 2 HVAC trade associations. The second, complementary business groups. Joe decided to connect with a complementary business group. Complementary business groups are where people serve the same type of ideal client, but with different services, and they're open to helping one another by providing advice as well as leads. The third, events, conferences, and masterminds. I know more than one independent consultant who spends time at events and conferences as well as with masterminds, and that's where they create the majority of their clients. The fourth, influencers, people who influence others in your industry. 5, your current clients, referrals, friends, family. And the last one, online, social media, such as LinkedIn. I just provided you 6 channels where you can find places where you can find your ideal client. But how do you go about finding them? Well, here's a quick exercise. It consists of 5 steps. I do this exercise with a whiteboard, the whiteboard behind me. You can do this using a piece of paper. You can use an online whiteboard. You can even perform this exercise with a blank wall and Post-it notes. So let me get started with the first step. I want you to start with your focus, that one thing for which you want to be known, and I want you to write it down. Next, I want you to write down your ideal client profile. What does that ideal client look like? What is that criteria? Because as you go through this exercise, you're going to be performing some comparisons. You're going to think about what that ideal client looks like to help you determine where you're going to find them. Step 2, I want you to create a map. Create a map of the channels. And here's how to go about creating the map, or my recommendation. Draw a circle. That circle is in the center of the piece of paper or center of the whiteboard. That is your ideal client. Next, draw spokes or 6 divisions out of that circle. One of those divisions will be associations and organizations. Another would be online, social media presence. Another, complementary business groups. Each of the 6 channels I mentioned earlier. Step 3, brainstorm. Look at each of those channels and brainstorm places or people where you might find your ideal client. Here's where you can write it on the board, or in my case, I like to use Post-it notes because you're going to need to move some of those things around. Step 4, I want you to prioritize. Look at everything you've written down and prioritize them within each channel. Here's where you're going to compare to your ideal client profile. The closer they fit to your ideal client profile, the closer to the center you want to place them. That's why I use Post-it. I can move them closer to the center. Step 5, take a step back and now choose the top 3 places or people where you want to network strategically. Be careful not to spread yourself too thin. You might be saying, but how do I know they're correct? Well, you might know, but if you don't, that's okay. Because what you will do is you will try. If it's not a good fit and the place isn't working, you pivot. You move on to another. But at least you have a starting point to figure out what is the next one you want to move on to. Now, you can come back and listen to this video again, or if you're interested, there is a document that you can download that talks about finding your ideal client. I've provided a link in the description area below. Help yourself to that as well. Let me recap. As an independent consultant, you only have so much time and so much energy to create clients because you're also working with clients. What that means is you need to focus your energy. You need to focus your energy on spending time in the right places. Places where you can find your ideal client and they can find you. Your goal is to build relationships with your ideal client. And you want to make it easy for you as well as for them to connect. There is nothing better than having somebody walk up to you and say, I trust you. I've gotten to know you and I have a problem. Can we talk? Networking and being strategic about where you're networking is important. What you don't want to do is cast a wide net and try to be everywhere. You want to be selective. And every year you should take some time to review where you're spending your time because you change and your ideal client changes. And if you're spending time with the organization might be changing. Your goal is to make the right connections with your ideal client so that you can create clients and grow your business. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. I hope you're walking away with at least one idea. If you're interested in talking to me about your consulting business or how to go about mastering consulting, schedule some time to talk. If you're not interested in talking, that's fine. But if you're interested in assessing your consulting business, go ahead and download the consultant assessment document. You can find links to both my calendar as well as the document in the description area and the first comment. Interested in more videos such as this? Subscribe to the channel and click on the bell to be notified when the next video is available. If you found this helpful, give me a thumbs up. It helps me understand what is helping you. And now, until next time.